Welcome back, historians! We now know that in this unit, we'll recount the American colonies' fight for freedom. To understand why American colonists decided it was worth fighting for their independence from Britain, we'll start with what exactly they were fighting against. This brings us to our question for today's lesson. How did Britain's actions after the French and Indian War change its relationship with the colonies? In this lesson, we'll learn what led to growing tension between the colonies and Britain, how British policies influenced colonial resistance, and how colonists organized their resistance. Ready, historians? Let's begin. Imagine a playground full of kids, but on this playground, there are no adults to supervise. Because of that, kids make up their own games, solve their own arguments, and learn how to get along. The kids have actually done quite a great job governing themselves. Well, eventually the adults show up after being gone for a long time, and they start controlling which games the kids can play and set new, strict rules. How do you think the kids will feel? How will they respond? If you said they might be confused, annoyed, or frustrated, that's how many in the American colonies felt about Great Britain in 1765. You see, from the 1680s to the early 1760s, the American colonists experienced something dubbed by historians salutary neglect. That is, a time when Britain decided not to enforce laws made by Parliament in their colonies. Meaning, Britain mostly left the colonies alone, and over the course of almost 100 years, the colonists began running their own local governments, collecting their own taxes, and trading pretty freely. This all changed after Britain and the colonies teamed up to fight France for control of the Ohio River Valley during the French and Indian War. Britain and the colonies won with two major outcomes: a whole lot of land and a whole lot of debt. First, Britain gained a massive amount of land from France and Spain in North America. This territory ran from the Appalachian Mountains to the Mississippi River, including the Ohio River Valley. To British leaders across the ocean, such as Prime Minister George Grenville, this meant more responsibility. They believed the colonies needed stronger oversight, more soldiers, and clearer rules to keep order along the frontier. The frontier was land outside the areas where the British were already living and had settlements. We'll spend a lot of time on the frontier in this course because many important events in early U.S. history happened there. One of those rules created for colonists was the Proclamation of 1763, which reserved land west of the Appalachian Mountains for Native American nations, meaning no colonists were allowed to settle there. This rule was created in order to prevent conflict with the indigenous people who lived on this land. Why do you think many colonists disagreed with this rule? To many of them, this felt like a betrayal. They had fought in the war, risked their lives, and now expected to be granted access to new land where they could settle as a reward for their service. Instead, Britain was telling them where they could live, settle, and expand, signaling that the era of hands-off rule was over. Now let's talk about the second major outcome: Britain's massive debt. The French and Indian War was expensive for Britain because the British government had to pay, supply, and transport soldiers to fight battles across North America. Now the question was, who should be responsible for the massive debt? Britain or the colonists? Before the French and Indian War, the average British citizen paid about 26 shillings a year in taxes. Colonists, on the other hand, often paid around 1 shilling a year. Why do you think the British Parliament, or Britain's lawmaking body, argued that it was time for the colonists to pay more taxes after the French and Indian War? The British Parliament argued that the war was fought to protect the colonies, so the colonists should help pay off the war debt and help cover the cost of keeping British troops in America after the war. They passed the Stamp Act, Sugar Act, and Townshend Acts. All three of these acts placed taxes on important daily goods in the colonies, such as paper items, sugar, and everyday imported goods like tea. This meant that everyday goods were now more expensive. It wasn't just being told to pay these taxes that upset the colonists. It was the fact that these decisions were made in the British Parliament without anyone there to represent or speak for them. Out of their disagreement, colonists coined the famous phrase, "No taxation without representation." In other words, you can't make decisions about us without us. What do you think a member of British Parliament might have said in response to this? A member of parliament might have said, "Well, of course we can tax you. And what's more, it's about time you pay your fair share." I don't know about you, but this has me thinking about the lens of power. In this case, the British Parliament did have the power to make and enforce the rules, as the colonists were technically subjects of Britain. But in addition to the new taxes, many colonists argued that the British abused their power. For example, British officials could search homes or ships without giving a clear reason. Now, the colonists weren't fighting for freedom from Britain quite yet, but they were unhappy with this power imbalance. So many of them began to protest and organize forms of resistance to British control. Let's take a look at how. Take a moment to study this cartoon that was spread in the colonies after the Stamp Act was passed. In this image, the artist divided the snake into many pieces. Each part of this snake represents a different colony. Notice the text, "Join or die." What do you think the creator of this image wants people to feel or do? This cartoon aims to make colonists feel fear and urgency. It's suggesting that if the colonies don't unite, they risk losing everything. And that message mattered. Before this moment, the colonies mostly acted as separate communities, not as one united group. But as tensions with Britain grew, colonists began looking for ways to act together rather than alone. Across the colonies, people started organizing meetings in taverns, assembly halls, and private homes to share news and coordinate responses to British laws. They formed groups, exchanged letters, debated their rights, and used protests and boycotts to push back against British control. Doing this was risky because British authorities could punish colonists with fines, arrest, or even violence for challenging their rule. In your lesson materials, you'll get to explore these secret groups and the tactics they used to build their resistance against British rule. In this lesson, we saw how the relationship between British and the colonies had changed after the French and Indian War. New laws, taxes, and restrictions made many colonists feel their freedoms were under threat. Instead of responding alone, colonists began to organize, communicate, and resist together. In the next lesson, we'll see how these actions and Britain's response to them pushed the colonies even closer to open conflict. Until next time, keep learning from America's story so you can help write its next chapter. Hey.